Hey guys, so how on earth are we going to summarize hundreds of conversations that the three of us have had over the last 3 days here at AHR Expo? It's not easy, not easy at all. But to kind of set context to this, as I've been the one that's been coming to these shows the longest, I think at least 15 years, if not more. Um, when I look at products that I saw, the companies, the applications using different natural refrigerants, I think it's fair to say that there were more products and companies showcasing natural refrigerant products than last year, which already was a very big year for natural refrigerants, right? I think that's pretty fair to
I
say,
agree.
right?
I agree.
Yeah. Um, and all natural refrigerants. You got a bit of ammonia, a bit of CO2, and a bit of propane and isobutane. So yeah, did I miss anyone? Do you see anything
No,
else? No,
I
those they
those
were
are
all
the main
present there.
ones. Yeah,
But let's not beat about the bush. Um, at best, that was less than 10% of all the exhibitors and all the products, probably 5%. It's still a really small number. And it's a little bit, after coming here for 15 years, you kind of get frustrated, right? You think, my God, man, when is it going to change? But there is change. It is coming, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Michael and Michael are gonna talk about that in a bit. But like, so it's kind of like when you hit, you know, natural refrigerants here are like 5-10%. If you compare to say what's happening in Europe, when there'll be a big trade show, Chillventa, which is slightly different from the HR, but it's a hugely important show for refrigeration and heat pumps. So I guess irrelevant. That show, if it's anything like 2 years ago in Germany, it will be 95% natural refrigerants and 5% synthetics. The synthetics are going to be hiding. Here, it's kind of the complete opposite. It was an A2L R32 show. It felt like for the ones that are coming over from Europe, it felt like, well, we're going back 10 years, 5 years. So that was a little bit frustrating, I have to say. However, going back to the conversations that I've had and we've all had, we know what's coming, and there's a lot of exciting stuff coming. And that's for refrigeration as well as for heat pumps. Um, Michael, you want to maybe explain a little bit what you've seen
yes,
on the
yes.
refrigeration side?
I saw some very interesting, exciting developments here in Chicago at AHR Expo. For one thing, you know, as a reflection of the growth, and our data has shown growth in the installations of CO2 transcritical in supermarkets and industrial applications. Some of the major players who manufacture products for CO2 in Europe are going to be starting to manufacture them here in the US, such
So
as
U.S. made.
US made.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah, it
The
is,
manufacturing is coming over here.
because they don't want to delay shipments for these products. They want to be on the ground in the US. Copeland, a major compressor and component manufacturer, will be manufacturing transcritical CO2 compressors starting next month
Hmm.
in the U.S. Dan,
Because they've
because
got demand for it,
there's
right?
demand,
They want
there's a
shorter
growing
lead
demand. They
times.
want to be on the ground with it.
Yeah.
They were making them in Czech Republic,
Mm.
and want to get away from the delay in shipments. So that's encouraging. Danfoss, a major Danish component maker, is introducing for the first time a CO2 condensing unit for supermarkets that will supply not just cold rooms but cases. And that's kind of a departure because it's very rack oriented culture,
So there's gonna be more competition now.
more competition for racks.
Yeah.
And they're going to manufacture that in the US, I believe in California. And then we heard from Luve, an Italian.
Vivaco will be doing the same, but they're not going to be manufacturing in the US, but they're bringing those condensing units too to compete
Right.
on the rack side, or to
And
compete with racks.
Right, and then Luve is an Italian manufacturer, said that they'll be manufacturing their adiabatic gas coolers for CO2 in the U.S. In the near future. So that's encouraging. I saw a lot of use of electronics is advancing. The use of AI, the use of IoT in in the HVAC and R industry. You know, Embraco has introduced its own controller for its compressors to better sync up with their compressor technology and provide more data and warning signs about the performance of their compressors and just performance data for end users. Copeland has a new case controller. It was very interesting to see. Echo 2 Systems makes heat pump water heaters using CO2. They have designed a way of communicating data from to utilities from their heat pump water heaters. So in a case where there's a demand response situation where they need to, where the, you know, the grid is overheated and they need to, you know, turn off some appliances, the utility can connect to those heat pump water heaters and turn them off. So this kind of these kind of advances in AI, communications, electronics is very, you know, was clearly evident at the show. And the other
Before
big
you
thing,
jump,
yeah,
let Michael
yeah,
jump
yeah,
in as well.
yeah.
Yeah, obviously this is my first AHR. I don't have
It's not been easy for you, right? But you know, you're doing very well. You've been able to have some great conversations.
Asks good questions.
Yeah, ask good questions as well. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's always a good
Yeah.
start, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who's giving me the time and just taking the time to educate me. I appreciate that. But while I don't have the history, Mark, I definitely picked up on what you said, where it kind of feels like, hey, we're back in time from a European perspective, because I did talk to a ton of European companies with long histories, especially with CO2, and the vibe is like, well, we're in the US and we're kind of not at square one, but we're not nearly where we are in Europe, and we have all of this experience, but it's not the same market. But the good news is a lot of these companies, they're working with major supermarket chains now and they're doing testing. So we're building a new facility. We want our walk-ins to be powered by your R290 roof-mounted chiller. That's a Revical plug. We're doing, hey, a whole new supermarket. Maybe we can get a massive compressor from Doran to power all of our refrigeration and cooling needs. So there's definitely some, I guess, reason to be optimistic. Maybe we're the step before the next big step, but this time next year, I think maybe we'll be having conversations that aren't just we're testing, but hey, we're shipping units and we have some sales figures to report.
You know, I mean, look, let's be clear. Yeah, you're right. There's more and more players coming to the US market because that's the next market to go in that refs. It's that simple, and it's the biggest one. So you know, we got 70,000, just to take the example of CO2, 70,000 transcritical installations in Europe alone, commercial industrial. Here it's about 2,000 in the US. So
And Canada.
and Canada, and you know, sorry, thank you. And you know, it took 10 years or more to get from, you know, to 70,000 for the Europeans, a little bit more than that. And you know, the expectation is that the US will do that in half the time. And clearly there's going to be more and more players, Europeans, Asians, South Africans, all coming to this market because they see opportunities to leverage.
Yeah,
and that's for refrigeration, right?
right.
Right. But this is also this is also a big heat pump show.
It's a very
Been a boiler show for
Yeah.
a long, an HVAC
Right.
show, but it's now becoming a heat pump show. So
Yes.
what did we see on that? Because that's the exciting bit. I
It
guess
is.
that's also one of the exciting parts
Well,
of what we're working.
As everybody knows, the world is electrifying in many respects, getting rid of fossil fuel boilers and furnaces to provide heating in homes and buildings and replacing them with heat pumps. And so the question is, what's the refrigerant in that heat pump? And we want that refrigerant to be a natural refrigerant.
Yeah.
And we saw evidence of that here at HR Expo. Many providers of CO2 heat pump water heaters, CO2 at the commercial level.
Yeah, more options this year than last.
More options this year. I mean, it's used specifically for hot water, domestic hot water generation, not space heating because of the mechanics of CO2. But you know, we saw several examples of that. Mitsubishi Electric Train, Link by Watt.
It uses an Enerblue unit. Works with Enerblue on this.
Yes, Mestec has a transom unit. You know, and then today I saw a very interesting one called IntelliHot, which is the first. They say they're the first one that does not use a water tank to save space. They have a different system that uses kind of what they call a battery that where the water comes in and gets heated up and then goes out. So they eliminate the need for a large water tank, which is and they've installed this already. It's a new product in Washington D.C. school system. So that's very exciting. And
Hopefully we'll get them to speak at Atmo
yes, a
America.
plug for Atmo America,
Yeah.
June in Washington
Yeah,
D.C.
yeah.
We're hoping for.
Yeah. But then you
yeah.
also saw, I mean, we all saw the Budzar units.
Right.
And they had this isobutane heat pump there.
Yes. So
Yeah.
you know.
Isobutane, not propane. So
Right,
that's the
isobutane, a small amount of isobutane in a unit that it can be both a cooling and heating unit, and you know the propane heat pumps that are available in Europe for domestic use that are monoblock.
None of those here.
Propane. We saw a couple on display, but
Yeah.
they were just for show because we need to see ASHRAE and UL and EPA increase the charge allowed for propane in these units. But ASHRAE has started that process, so we're hoping that will advance quickly.
Now, one thing before I forget.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we saw PFAS nowhere. Like there was no mention of PFAS anywhere.
Right.
Literally nowhere.
Right.
Hardly in any of the conversations, unless you kind of like initiated those conversations, but it wasn't part of the general conversation.
No.
It's all about, low GWP,
Right.
and
Well,
let's not even mention the PFAS angle. This is where you really see a very big difference with the European and US markets today, but that obviously is going to change with time.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see any, did you?
No.
PFAS mentioned in the PFAS?
A2Ls are everywhere at the show. They contain HFOs, which are linked to PFAS, which are forever chemicals that are polluting the environment. So that is a big concern. Europeans are taking that very seriously, not so much here in the U.S. yet, but we'll see how that develops. I think there's a lot of pushback against. I mean, there's a lot of concern about PFAS, just not at the refrigerant level here in the U.S.
Okay.
I want to also put a plug in for the ammonia heat pumps that I saw, ammonia absorption heat
Stony
pumps.
Mountain, right?
Stone Mountain Technologies, under the brand NSC, is starting to manufacture its ammonia absorption heat pumps for residents that generates both space heating and domestic hot water. Robur, ROBUR, is another company that makes ammonia absorption heat pumps, and those can also be used for cooling, and they're a larger commercial level. So we saw all three natural refrigerants represented in the heat pump space. Very exciting. And another thing, of course, there's a lot of discussion about the Biden administration's IRA funding for heat pump support through tax incentives and rebates through the government, through the federal government and the state government, to support the installation of heat pumps and electrification. And that's helping on the natural refrigerant side as well. There was a lot of discussion about that.
Yeah, no, I think well summarized. You want to add anything? I'm guessing it's too much to ask right now for your first show, so we'll be gentle. We probably missed plenty of things. So for the ones that watch this video, please, feel free to comment, and then hopefully we'll get back to you. But hopefully you like this summary, this very fresh summary. We haven't had time to digest yet.
One last thing is that we'll be writing about this on r744.com, ammonia21.com, and hydrocarbons21.com.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, and we got big news coming in April about all these different websites.
Yes.
But I can't say anything right now.
All right.
But so watch this space.
Yes.
Bye-bye, everyone, and see you at the next show.
Bye-bye.